Senator Lieberman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, the behavior by Americans at the prison in Iraq is, as we all acknowledge, immoral, intolerable, and un-American. It deserves the apology that you have given today and that have been given by others in high positions in our government and our military. I cannot help but say, however, that those who were responsible for killing 3,000 Americans on September 11, 2001 never apologized. Those who have killed hundreds of Americans in uniform in Iraq, working to liberate Iraq and protect our security, have never apologized. And those who murdered and burned and humiliated 4 Americans in Fallujah a while ago never received an apology from anybody. So it's part of what wrongs occurred here by the people in those pictures and perhaps by people up the chain of command. But Americans are different. That's why we're outraged by this. That's why the apologies were due. And that's why I hope as we go about this investigation, we do it in a way that does not dishonor the hundreds of thousands of Americans in uniform who are a lot more like Pat Tillman and Americans that are not known, like Army National Guard Sergeant Felix Del Greco of Simsbury, Connecticut, who was killed in action a few weeks ago. That we not dishonor their service or discredit the cause that brought us to send them to Iraq, because it remains one that is just and necessary. We got to get to the whole truth here, nothing but the truth. We can't be defensive, we got to be aggressive about it, and as Senator McCain said, we've got to do it quickly so that we and you, and most of all our soldiers, can get back to fighting and winning the war on terrorism with determination. As far as I'm concerned, we do have to know how this happened, and we have to know it so we can stop it from happening ever again. You've said that the behavior of those soldiers was fundamentally un-American. I agree with you. And this goes way back to the first American declaration, the Declaration of Independence, where we said that every human being has those rights as an endowment of our Creator. That even goes to human beings who've been apprehended by our military, as they have been in Iraq, because they are suspected of being part of the terrorists, of the jihadists, of the foreign fighters, of the Saddam loyalists who are killing Americans and Iraqis every day. We know that people are flawed, and that's why we believe in the rule of law, to try to make us better and punish those who fall below appropriate humane standards. In that regard, it seems to me when it comes to the treatment of prisoners and detainees in conditions of combat, the Geneva Convention, adopted by the United States, is the law of the land, and that has been implemented by U.S. Army Regulation 190-8. You made some controversial statements early on after Afghanistan that said the Geneva Convention was not relevant here, that by and large, and I'm quoting generally, American military interrogators, prison guards would try to carry out the rights of prisoners and detainees according to the Geneva Convention. But I want to ask you today, as you look back to that, do you think you were right? Did anything replace the rules of the Geneva Convention and Army Regulation 190-8? And if not, why not?
Senator, the President of the United States made a determination in early 2002 that the Geneva Convention provisions did not apply to our conflict with al-Qaeda. Although he concluded that Geneva Conventions did apply to the conflict with Taliban. That was a decision by the President. He determined that Taliban detainees did not qualify as prisoners of war under the Third Geneva Convention criteria for prisoners of war. He also made clear that it was and will continue to be the policy to treat detainees humanely and in a manner that was consistent with the Geneva Conventions. So the people were treated consistent to the Geneva Conventions, but he made a distinction with respect to al-Qaeda. And
Are these detainees, do you assume, members of al-Qaeda? That is, the thousands that have been held in Iraq, or are they in another status?
Oh, no, the president announced from the outset that everyone in Iraq who is a military person and was detained is a prisoner of war, and therefore the Geneva Conventions apply. And second, the decision was made that the civilians or criminal elements that are detainees are also treated subject to the Geneva Convention, although it's a different element of it. I think it's the fourth instead of
Article
the third.
4.
Right, I appreciate that clarification, because I was not aware of that you would say that all those held in prison, including those who were abused here, had the rights of prisoners of war.
Absolutely.
Under the Geneva Convention.
Absolutely.
That's true.
And therefore the fault clearly was that those we've seen, and hopefully not others, were not either properly trained, properly disciplined, or in any case not observing the law of the United States of America with regard to the rights of prisoners of war.
If I may, I think that's exactly right. It's aberrant behavior. The Taguba report, if you recall, looked at 4 installations where the 800th MP Brigade had operations. They found abuse in 1, and that's Abu Ghraib. They found abuse in 1.
My time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very much.